All right. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Inspired Nation. We've got some big things coming, and I wanted to confront or bring about to you and answer a question that I've been getting messages from. I've been getting messages on Facebook. I've been getting some messages on Instagram and said, hey, it's great that you're going to 3 times a week versus your 1 time a week of what your podcasts were in 2020. Why are you doing that, man? How are you going to come up with the content? How are you possibly going to come up with more content, 3 times as much content per week than what you were currently doing? And honestly, I don't know. I honestly do not know where a lot of the content's going to come from. But I do know it's going to force me to find it. It's out there. Lessons in life are always present if you're looking for them. You know, a lot of people are always looking at some of these podcasts, some of these books, like, man, where do you get the ideas for that stuff? Where do you get the ideas to come up with this? Where do you get the stories? It's life. It's what I'm seeing around me. Like, for example, today I went to Target, picking up some groceries, bagging up the groceries. The lady looks at me and says, and I was getting a furnace filter. And she looks at me and she goes, you know what, that's a great idea. I should probably remember to get one of those before I leave work tonight. And I said, hey, you're welcome for being the reminder for you to make that happen. And she smiled and we chuckled and she said, the funny part is it's my job at home. Like, my husband, it's right across from the deep freeze. So when I'm down there, I just see the furnace and it makes me think of I need to get probably a new furnace. So this will be my reminder. Thank you for doing that for me. And I said, hey, you're welcome. And she said again, she goes, you know what? The funny part is it's always been my job. It's always been my job to get the furnace filter. I've been married with my husband for 37 years. He's never once thought about getting the furnace filter because it's my job. It's just the role. And I said, sometimes in life, activities are assumed. Activities are assumed in your life. Sometimes people out there assume that you're going to get something done. They don't maybe just think about it might happen. They just assume you're going to do it. You assume your kids are going to wake up in the morning and go to school. You assume you're going to go to work and come home at the end of the week and have a paycheck. You assume the sun's going to come up. Man, what if you took away those assumptions? Like, for example, that husband, that Target person I was speaking with, that cashier. And for the longest time, her husband assumed that his wife, was the one to get the furnace filter. Hey, that's great. What happens when she passes away, if she passes away in front of him? Well, guess what? That notch, that little thing that happens just without even thinking about it for him, gets dropped. The ball gets dropped. Where in your life, where in your world, may you assume something may be going, but if a person disappeared from your life, you would have no clue how to do it. You would have no idea how to get into the bank account because you assume that your spouse is taking care of everything. People, it's time to start taking assumptions and letting them go. You know, the word assume, if you break it down, first 3 letters, ASS, it makes an ass out of you and me. Assume. You can't assume anything in this world. You can't assume something's going to happen. You have to make something happen. And if you can't make it happen, you figure out how to make it happen. If you can't figure out how to make it happen, you hire somebody to make sure it happens. We overcomplicate things because we're assuming other people are going to get things done. You know, if I sat back on these podcasts and I assumed I was just going to be able to come up with ideas, I would get to the morning of that it was supposed to come out and be like, oh, how am I going to... Crap, I gotta create an idea. No. I know. I don't assume. I just know that in my life there are lessons being taught to me every freaking single day. Every day. The lady at Target, the patient that I had last night taught me a lesson about perspective. The person in town who had a major injury taught me perspective about what's possible and how important it is to take care of my body and not take anything for granted. You just assume tomorrow's going to happen and you're going to wake up and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Stop assuming. Start preparing. Perspective is power. If you have perspective with what's going to happen in the day, if you look around your world and you see people that are less fortunate, people that are more fortunate, whatever it is, and you have perspective on life, that is when power starts to come into your world because you realize and understand and know that you are never left alone. You're never left alone. If you've ever fallen completely apart, if you've been to the highest peak and you've been to the lowest valley and you have not broken, Someone's watching over you. Something is watching over you. You were promised to not be left alone. Do you remember that? Do you remember that promise? What it said, I will never leave you. I will always be with you. We're not meant to be people on islands. We're not meant to be people alone. We're meant to be people in a society, an accountability, and a group and a community with similar visions. It doesn't mean we're not going to disagree. It doesn't mean we're always going to get along 100%. But what it does mean is that you will always have support. You will always have respect. When we start disrespecting other people, we're not doing that. We're disrespecting ourselves. You're not alone. Never assume it's somebody else's role. Go out, take responsibility, bust the world in the chops, and get forward with kicking your day in the crotch. That's the inspiration message for today. Go get it.